everything. And what I'm going to do now is to take you to the website. I'm going to go on the internet. So having not done that before, that's new. And then I'm having someone else doing the actual manipulation of going around the internet. That will be new. We will have to coordinate, so I'm not sure how this is all going to go, but I'm pretty sure you'll bear with me and you'll help me out on this. The first thing I want to do is tell you where the talk is going. This talk is going to end up talking about Project Enduring Peace, which is my latest passion, and the ultimate goal of Project Enduring Peace is to get the nations of the world to agree that making war on each other really needs to end, and to advocate that they come to a peace table and make a new peace treaty. Now, that is easy to say, very hard to do in execution. So we know that this is a very heavy lift. We're not naive about that, but we know that it can be done. It has to start somewhere. So this is where we're starting. As I say, the idea of getting a peace treaty is at the heart of PEP. But I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about how you get to the peace treaty, and that's going to involve getting people to sign a petition. And we'll talk more about that later. And the other thing I'm going to do where we're going is to introduce to you two websites. The first one is one called A Future Without War, something that I worked on for over 20 years. So all the material that I collected in research and blogs and essays and book reviews, movie reviews, all kinds of material that you can use on Future Without War. And then the other website is the Project Enduring Peace website. So with both of those two things in mind, I want to ask you a question. And all the talks I've been speaking for about 10 years for a reason that I didn't want to mention it here. But in all the many years that I gave talks about a future without war, I always started them this way, and so I'm going to ask you the same question. Just in your own mind, answer this question. Do you believe it's possible for humans to end war? Not would you like us to end war, but do you actually believe it's possible to end war? And now I want to compare how this group feels with other groups. Let me ask you very honestly, if you raise your hands, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 out of 10 people. That needs to be recorded. It's 9 out of 10, and it needs to be recorded that this is a peace group. Okay? I will assure you that having spoken to many groups of different sizes, up to 100 people, the public at large, the answer is that 70% say no, it's not possible. 70% roughly, you know. The only other group that comes close to you was a group of 12 peace people, and out of that group, 5 said, yes, I think it's possible. No, it's the other way around. 7 said, I think it's possible. But 5 of them said no. And these were peace workers and peace people. But in being honest, they said, no, I actually don't think that we can do it. That kind of disbelief is a major barrier to doing it. Because with human beings, if you don't believe it's possible, then it's not possible. Belief in the ability to achieve something is when you will spend time and money and effort working for it. So if you don't think it's possible, then you go on and do other things in your life. So what I'm going to do, the very first thing I'm going to show you, I'm very excited about. It's a video that was produced by a friend who's become a very good friend, an anthropologist by the name of Douglas Fry. And he worked with colleagues, but they studied peace systems, a number of them around the world, and they've made this wonderful video. So without further ado, the title of the video is The Science of Peace Systems. And I'm going to have our projection guy start it right now. It's 8.5 minutes, so settle in.
I have to finish writing this paper. I'm swamped.
Just get
This is the ad we're going
Grammarly. It's free.
Can it help with what I wrote last night?
Grammarly will catch all those spelling and grammar errors, and it'll help with the bigger stuff. Grammarly can also give you ideas to make your writing better. Add more background, add specific examples, focus your conclusion.
This sounds like me, but better. A less damp me. You think a less damp me could get that internship?
A less damp you can do anything. Download Grammarly for free.
Each of us encounters conflict every day. With our families, friends, at work, in society. But our conflicts rarely turn violent. Instead, we discuss the problem, compromise, take turns, negotiate, or just plain walk away. As individuals, we prefer to avoid violence. However, groups of people sometimes respond in one of the most violent ways possible, through war. War is costly, wasteful, and inhumane. It stands in the way of cooperating to solve the threats to human survival. As pandemics threaten, the ice caps melt, and nature weeps. Humanity must adopt new approaches to safety and security. Fighting amongst ourselves will not save us. Many people think there has always been war and there always will be war. But scientific evidence shows that some societies, past and present, have successfully shunned war by creating peace systems. Peace systems are clusters of neighboring societies that do not make war on each other. There are various historic and cross-cultural examples of peace systems, from tribal peoples to nations, and even to regions. A study of peace systems provides novel insights for ending wars, and could help usher in an era of unsurpassed global cooperation. Peace systems share several characteristics. One key feature is the development of an overarching social identity, an inclusive identity that expands the us to include the them. Most citizens of the European Union, which was created to prevent wars, now hold an overarching identity as Europeans in addition to local and national identities. The historically warring Swiss cantons, some Protestant, some Catholic, some small, some large, came to perceive themselves as non-warring members of one larger and diverse social entity, the country of Switzerland. War among cantons is nowadays considered a thing of the past, long ago replaced by a multi-ethnic, multilingual society where diverse citizenry live peaceably together.
I may be a native speaker of French, but my parents originally came from German-speaking Switzerland, and I myself worked in an Italian-speaking area. I live in a neighborhood in which over 100 different nationalities live together in peace and harmony.
Peace systems also employ non-warring norms, values, symbols, and narratives to reinforce unity, cooperation, and peace. The indigenous peoples of the Upper Xingu peace system in Brazil believe that war is immoral. The Orang Asli societies of peninsular Malaysia constitute a peace system and socialize their children to act non-violently. The Haudenosaunee of North America replaced a cultural orientation towards war and revenge with non-warring norms and values, emphasizing unity and peace through law.
Hereabouts are 5 nations, each with its own council fire. Yet they shall live together as one household in peace. Our strength shall be in union, and our way, the way of reason, righteousness, and peace.
Generally, peace systems value and promote intergroup trade, marriages among the constituent groups, and common ceremonies, which can help their members see the common humanity across social lines, thus cementing relationships and building trust. The 5 Nordic nations have not warred with each other in over 200 years. They engage in regular commerce, trans-border cooperation, and proudly refer to their own Nordic peace brand of conflict resolution. As a person from one of the societies within the Upper Xingu peace system expresses,
We don't make war. We have festivals to which all of the villages come. We sing, dance, trade, and wrestle.
our destinies are intertwined. Global challenges such as climate change, loss of biodiversity, and nuclear proliferation require humanity to work together on solutions. The existence of peace systems demonstrates that humans can create alternatives to war and can cooperate to bring about a positive future. We must recognize the reality of global interdependence and the necessity of cooperating to tackle existential threats. While keeping our national identities, we can also adopt a more inclusive human identity. The Cayuga, Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, and Seneca peoples of North America lived in fear of each other and of societies further afield. Then, these 5 tribes transformed into a union of cooperating neighbors, calling themselves the Haudenosaunee. For 300 years, until disrupted by the arrival of Europeans, they unified and stopped making war with each other. According to legend, the Haudenosaunee planted a great white pine and buried their weapons of war beneath it, symbolizing their new norms, values, and intertribal relations based on peace. Their success offers a parable for humanity about abolishing war and promoting instead human unity, cooperation, and well-being.
In November 2012, Cornelius Devers sued Wells Fargo because there was a dispute.
You take us to the next website, which is going to be, if you just type in the search bar afww.org. Yeah, let's just hold it there for a minute. So about the video, I love showing it to you. I want to ask this question. How many of you were familiar with these peace systems who had never talked to me before? One person. I can assure you that is very typical. That even peace people do not know about the concept of peace systems. And it's important because it shows that, first of all, we can stop making war with each other. It's been done by other people in the past. So this is proof that war is not a genetic inevitability. Okay, this is proof that you can start trying to convince people it is possible to end war. There have been people who did it, and it lasted a long time. The interesting thing about the Iroquois Confederacy was that they lived in the upper east of the United States, and that confederation lasted over 300 years. The United States is a peace system. Our founding fathers, there were 13 colonies, and they decided they'd seen all the war that they wanted. They came from Europe, and they'd seen all the wars, hundreds of years of wars, and said, if we don't do something in advance, our colonies will end up making war with each other. Let's do something in advance. Let's make a peace agreement that will show how we're going to live together without war. And they put together the U.S. Constitution. And by the way, they took a lot of ideas from the Iroquois Agreement. Okay, the Iroquois had been doing it for 300 years. Our enlightened founding fathers said, they have some good ideas here. The other thing I'd like to point out that's not in this video is that I started studying societies a long time ago, when I was an undergraduate. And I wanted to know in which societies did men and women share in governing? Were there any societies where women and men shared in governing? The vast majority of them, anthropologically, are not. Most of them are patriarchies or the equivalent thereof. But there were societies where women were very influential. And one of the traits that I noticed about those societies is they tended to be the ones that did not make war and raised their children in nonviolent ways from childhood on up. So, and with the tradition for the Iroquois Confederacy is that they had 3 enlightened leaders, 2 men. One of the men had the name Hiawatha, that you've probably heard his name before, but he was one of the founders of that confederacy, and the other was a woman. So that was something that had settled into my mind pretty firmly in my research, about 10 years into my research. So those are the things I wanted to say about the peace system. Also take note that the first step of making a peace system in all of them is that there are leaders with the vision who convince the people that they should stop making war with each other, that it was crazy, that they would be better off if they made peace instead. And the first step was some kind of agreement. They make the agreement formal. With the Iroquois, it was literally a treaty. In the United States, we have the Constitution. You'll note from the film that all those Swiss cantons, they didn't make one agreement. They made a series of agreements over years. But it ended up in the same place. They had to formalize it with some kind of agreement. Same thing with the European Union, which is another peace system after the Second World War. They did have a treaty, but then they followed it up with lots of agreements about different things to figure out how do we solve our conflicts. And that's one of the things that we would have to do if we want an Earth peace system. We have to decide first we're going to do it, and then we have to codify it somehow or other. And PEP believes that the first step to doing that is a peace treaty. I'll come back to that a little bit later. Let me back up here. We're on this Future Without War website. If you will go let me tell you a little bit about it. I don't know if you can read the menu bar at the top. It's hard for me to read it, and the projection is a little fuzzy, I think. Oh, there we go. So you have various subjects, and the first one I want to look at is called Overview. If you would click on the Overview, you'll see there's a drop-down list, and that the first thing on it is the study guide. And that is because it's a massive website. For someone to wander through here just on their own to figure out things would be extremely difficult because there's so much material. So I made the study guide that has things lumped together by subject matter. And the subject matter I would like you to scroll down to, start scrolling slowly. You can see that things I've given them in blue is the subject matter, and then in black it's the general context. And I want him to take us to nonviolence and stop there. These are all the things on that website that address the issue of nonviolence, how to get there and what it is and so on. And then I would like him to go down to the World Peace Map. A little bit further down. One more. There you go. This is a map of the world, and it's all the red dots are the cultures that anthropologists have said are nonviolent and non-warring. Right now, in our world, there are that many cultures that are nonviolent and non-warring. Again, this is another example to tell to people that yes, we don't have to make war. It's not a genetic inevitability. Let me look on my number here. I think there are 60 on this particular thing. And it's possible that since that material was drawn up, they may have found more. Now, you may know some groups that are nonviolent and non-warring and just kind of thought, well, they're really exceptional. Quakers, some of you may be Quakers, Mennonites, Jehovah's Witnesses, the Baha'i, and Hutterites. There are these that are technically nonviolent and non-warring. The Hopi Indians of the Southwest United States, the Sami people in the northern latitudes of Finland, Norway, and Sweden. They used to be called reindeer people. They like to be called Sami. They are nonviolent and non-warring. The owner of the biggest reindeer herd up there is a woman. The last time that I checked, the Sami president was a woman. Again, that same pattern where you look at these cultures in detail and find that women are participating in public affairs and making choices about what we spend our resources on, what we think about, how we raise our children, and so on. So if you come across in the future people who say, we cannot end war, you are now armed to tell them that no, we could end war if we want to do it. Now, I'm going to move on to Project Enduring Peace. And the way for you to get there, projection-wise, is go back to the home page, and you'll see on the menu bar on the right-hand side, it says Project Enduring Peace. Click on that one. There we go. Okay, that's the website. Scroll down so that you can see the first quote there. Okay, that's good. Not a little up, down a little, whatever. That is our logo. That's women and children releasing peace doves into the world. The advantage of PEP going digital, rather than meeting in groups, having marches, having protest demonstrations and so on, standing out on corners with signs or flags, PEP has gone entirely digital. And the advantage is that if you have, wherever you are in the world, If you have access to the internet, you have access to all of this information. So that's one very good reason for PEP to be a website that is self-educational. By the way, you will note, or you could have noted, scroll down again and see, go to the top, scroll up. Stop right there. You'll notice the white thing that says select your language. Google Translate will do that. Y'all can go check it. You know, if you, I try to check it with my very bad German, and was able to read it pretty well. But whatever country these people are in all over the world, they can go there and click on select your language and have all of this material available to them. So the bottom line is this website, the two of them together, A Future Without War and PEP, give peace workers, people interested in ending war, tremendous resources that they can go to just on the internet. Now I want to read the Baha'i quote. So if you'll scroll up or down, whatever, so that I can read the quote. Oh, he's trying to show you that you could. Let's not do that. But that's how you could do it. You can go check, whatever is your favorite language there. But I need to move away from that now and go down to the quote. There we go. Wait, that's too far. Up. Okay, right there. This is by the son of the leader of the Baha'i community. Baha'i are also people that are nonviolent and non-warring. So it will come to pass that when women participate fully and equally in the affairs of the world, when they enter confidently and capably the great arena of law and politics, war will cease, for women will be the obstacle and hindrance to it. Folks, when I was doing this original research, by year 10, I had concluded that you could end war, but there were a number of necessary conditions. Not easy. We would have to change a lot of behaviors. But one of those necessary conditions was the empowerment of women. And that at 10 years into the study, I looked around the world and realized there were not enough influential and powerful women in the world to make a dent, that it was not really possible. That's when I stopped promoting A Future Without War, because I figured I'll probably not live long enough to see that number of women that could make this thing happen. Well, it was a year and a half ago when it occurred to me that, times have changed. There now are a lot of powerful and influential women in the world. For example, we have presidents, premiers, military leaders at all levels, ambassadors, heads of corporations, heads of universities, economic experts, environmental experts, very wealthy women like Oprah and Melinda Gates. We have global entertainers. What's her name? What? Yes, if Taylor Swift would discover us and promote PEP and draw who she knows together to get the idea going that it's time to get rid of war, everybody. That was, well, how interesting that you noticed that. I was going to point out we're very, very close to the big one. The most powerful person in the world may become a woman in our lifetime. Anyway, that was a year and a half ago, and that's when a light bulb went on, and I said, we need to do this now. And that's when we started with a group of friends working on PEP, Project Enduring Peace. We can do it now, and let's get it together. I would point out that PEP is founded by and is directed by women. They make women make the final decisions about what we're going to do and why we're going to do it. But absolutely, it's partnership with like-minded men, because this is a team effort. You have to have both the female side of our behavior and the male side of our behavior and all the in-between sides of our behavior. This isn't all hands on deck kind of project. I was going to skip the payoff that we would get by coming up with a peace treaty, but you can imagine the money saved, the human resources saved, the money saved from trying to clean up after wars, the amount of resources that we're currently spending on planning for wars, executing wars, and cleaning up after wars is grotesquely obscene. It is a form of social insanity. And we need to get the word out that that is exactly what it is, and it's time for it to end. And one of the pluses of our bad situation right now is that people all around the planet realize we've got horrible wars, weapons of war. We are polluting the planet terribly. We're doing some very wrong things that maybe civilization is not going to crack under the weight of this. And so that we're motivated. The global community, we can tap in to their motivation to make these big changes that would be necessary. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the fact that we've made treaties before, mostly around after the Second World War, for the obvious reason. The Second World War was bad enough, and enough people knew that it was bad enough that people were willing to listen to leaders that said we could make a peace treaty. Let's not do this anymore. So the first one that is still notable is something called the Kellogg-Briand Pact or treaty. It was a Mr. Kellogg from the United States and a Mr. Briand from France. And they got people together and said, look, let's put an end to war. The next thing that happened was the League of Nations. Some of you know about the League of Nations. And then, of course, our big try has been the United Nations, which is successful, at least in ending lots of wars and preventing wars. But it hasn't really stopped international warfare, a la Putin. Putin has made it very clear that if you don't have an agreement that is enforceable, at some point, some guy will rise up. It's been almost always a guy who wants to conquer it all and will start another international war. And that is the big problem with all previous treaties, is they rely on voluntary compliance. So if we're going to do anything, we have to answer the question, what would a treaty look like now? We're going to have to do something different. And so, if my projecting guy will go over there and click on the menu bar at the top at where it says treaty. No, not the Project Enduring Peace menu bar. There you go, treaty. There's a whole essay here on that we've had treaties, what about the treaties, what were the problems with the treaties. The two main ones were that they relied on voluntary compliance, and the other was that they were not universal. Not everybody in the world, not every nation in the world signed on to them. And that became very clear when Putin invaded Ukraine, that a lot of the talking heads were saying, look, if China and Russia and India and Iran and of these other nations were not we're also putting on sanctions, or if Putin had known that the entire world community would immediately sanction him, he probably would not have invaded in the first place. He could not afford to have invaded in the first place. But he is being supported by other nations. So the nature of the treaty is described, and how it could be enforceable is described, and why our time now makes it possible. It was not possible. The way the social conditions in the global community, back when those treaties were made, did not favor an enforceable treaty. That's probably why they didn't make one. They couldn't figure out how to do it. This essay talks a little bit about why our time has changed now so that we could do an enforceable treaty. So that's another piece of information you can have when somebody says to you, a really knowledgeable person, oh, we've had treaties before and they never work. You can't get a treaty that'll work. You can say to them, there is a new possibility because times have changed. And you can read this essay to get prepared if you want to tell them yourself, or you can refer them to the essay so that they'll have that information. I think I'm going to skip a little bit of that and go on down to, we'll look at some more about PEP. Let us now look at that thing where it says take action. This is, again, a self-explanatory website. Let's say, now, by the way, I have a friend who says that most people will do one thing. They're going to go write and sign a petition, and then that's it. They'll feel they're done. But there will be people who want to know how to be an evangelist for this cause. They want to know the details. And so we've got this essay that suggests to people how you can take action, what you can do. And I think if we scroll down to action 1 and halt right there, it says go sign the petition. Because that's the end place that you end up on this website, and I'll be talking more about that in a bit. But that would be the first thing you could do. If you scroll down to the next one, okay, you can learn how a new or updated treaty to prevent wars would work. And it takes you to a short essay, how the treaty would work, which is what we just looked at. If you scroll all the way through this page, it will suggest several self-learning things. And I think we won't take type on them, but again, that's something you can go back on your own and scroll through all the things you can do. Keep going down, and let's get to where, keep going. Okay, halt right there. The last one at the bottom. Host a PEP peace petition party. If you're really hot to be an evangelist for this, you can host a PEP party. Have folks come to your house, explain to them that you want to share with them the good news that it is possible to end war, and you're going to have a party at your house. You show them Doug Fry's video so they can see that it's been done in the past. It still could be done. You can go to any web pages on the PEP website that you want to project to them, that world peace map or whatever. And then you can have debate and talk about the possibilities. One of the simple things you could do at the end of the party would be to have them, give them a 3x5 card, and they can write down the names of 5 people that they are personally going to tell about this. Simple thing like that. But the first thing they can do is write down the names of 5 people that they will spread the word to. A bigger thing that was suggested that could be a lot of fun, depending on how crafty you may be, is to make a peace bracelet, buy the materials. You can either do it yourself if you have the money to buy enough material, or you can ask people for a donation afterwards. But you'll have the material ready that they can make those beaded bracelets with 3 beads that say PEP. And then people can wear that bracelet. And when people say, ooh, what does PEP stand for? They can say, why, that stands for Project Enduring Peace. Let me tell you what it's about. That's another thing. And you can be as creative as you want to be at your peace petition party. But of course, the main thing you're going to want to get them to do is sign the petition. So we'll move on a little bit. Let's go back to the PEP homepage. Okay, scroll up just a little bit into the where it says sign the petition.
Scroll up a little bit more. Okay, hold right there. Excuse me. So right on the home page, we do have a link to the petition, and that is for people who've heard that's for people who don't even need your speech or any talk or convincing. If you say to them, we have this petition that we're putting out for Project Enduring Peace, and if you're willing to sign it, press this button and it'll take you right to the page. So let's do that. Press the button. I hope it goes there. And there's the Project Enduring Peace petition. And if you scroll on the right-hand side, you see the place where you give your name, your first name, your last name, and your email. You have to give the email because that's who you are in the world. That's how they get rid of duplication and that sort of thing. You have to be identified. And it's your email address, because this is a very digital world nowadays, and most people have some kind of an email address. And then on the left side, if you scroll down a bit, you'll see a long essay. There's an introduction that you can go read what the petition is about. And if you scroll some more, stop right there for a minute. The Peace System video, there is a link there to people who may not have looked at the video yet. That allows them to go to the video if they want to check it out, and then come back and read some more about the petition. And then scroll down a little bit more, keep going, and then you get to hold right there to the actual petition. You can read the petition itself, and then go on the right-hand side, scroll back up to the right-hand side and sign it if you're willing. So let me say something a little bit about the petition. This was because when we were talking about PEP and the idea that we want to get to a peace treaty, an Earth peace system, how do you get to an Earth peace system? We felt that the quickest route there is a peace treaty, a global, enforceable peace treaty. That is step one. We know that from Doug Fry's research on all these different people. Step one is that the global community would have to get together somewhere, and the leaders would have to decide we're going to stop making war with each other. That right there is a big education campaign that we see ahead of us. But not too big a lift, because a lot of people all across the world, as I've already mentioned, are really primed to the idea that it might be good to stop making wars with each other. So they're primed. If we can just get the right Taylor Swift kind of people and the Kamala Harris kind of people to get behind the idea. And I mentioned those two people, the first one, because there are two ways you get a peace treaty. Who starts negotiations for peace treaties? We asked ourselves. Well, let's go find out. Let's go do some research. Turns out there are two ways. First of all, the heads of state across the world. If 5 or 6 of them get it in their head that they want to have a treaty about anything, about coal mining, about the climate, about a fisheries industry, whatever they want to have a treaty about, they can get together, and as heads of state, they can put in place the time, the place, invite everybody to come, set it all up. So heads of state can start peace treaty situation. The other source of doing that is the United Nations General Assembly, not the what do you call the, not the, what? Yeah, not the Security Council, exactly. But it has to become from the General Assembly. But if you study about petitions, they tell you can't address your petition to a group like General Assembly to be effective. The petition has to be addressed to a person who carries that with them. They take it on as their thing. So we're still looking for our person at the United Nations to whom we will mail the signatures. Where it has to be somebody who is capable of introducing a resolution to the UN General Assembly. So we're looking for the woman. That's our first choice. We're looking for a woman who is with the United Nations and has the ability to introduce a resolution to the General Assembly. So that's some information we had to find out right away. Is we got it. Yeah, the petition is a good idea, but to get their attention, you have to direct it to persons. So you can direct it to a head of state. That's a person. And then we have a person at the UN General Assembly. But more than that, folks, if you want your petition, most petitions, just really depressing, something like 90% of petitions don't do anything. They don't make it. They don't get their goal that they wanted to make. That's because they didn't aggressively promote it. You don't just write the petition and then walk away and it all happens by itself. You have to aggressively promote the petition, which we will be doing. That's our job. And you have to have the right number of signatures depending on what it is you want whoever to do. So if you want it to be just like your local police department, something you want to change with the local police department, you might get 1,000 signatures. If you want to change a law or to change something in California, a state or something like that, it's more like you need 10,000 signatures to do the job. If you want to change something at the national level in the United States, the recommended level is at least 100,000 signatures. 100,000. So we begin to digest that a little bit, and we begin to realize this is not a one-year petition project. At a minimum, we think we can do it in 3 years. And that's including aggressive promotion of the petition. We think that the first year we can get maybe 10,000. That's because I'm a member of a group that Ann Hoiberg is also a member of, which is WILF, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. That group has been around for over 100 years. They have branches all over the United States and lots of branches in the international branch, international division. If we get all of the WILF branches to get their members to sign the petition, we can make it 10,000 in the first year, I'm pretty sure. And especially there are other ways, other places to go. Go to the American Association of University Women. They have lots of branches. If their leadership would say, yeah, we can get behind that petition. We're in favor of a peace treaty to end war. Yeah, we'll get our branches to sign. There's a way, if we aggressively promote it, that we can get the number that we need. But I wanted to share that with you so that you realize that we're not unrealistic, that we're not naive. We have done our research. I see a hand out there. Yes, go ahead. That's it's Mary Robinson.
That's it.
Right.
I'm thinking the elders might be very
Yes. Do you know Mary Robinson? Can you contact her? Can you get past her gatekeepers?
I have seen her come to San Diego.
Okay.
But I have not
This is the challenge. There are many people who will be willing to do it, many groups who will be willing to do it. But to get to the leadership and convince them to support it is very challenging, because most of those people are guarded by at least 3 gatekeepers that you have to try to get past. But yes, we have thought about the elders. We've thought about a number of peace-oriented groups. For example, you have the Nobel Women's Initiative. They might be interested in it. and so on. I won't go. There's a long list of peace groups that we can contact, and we will be working on it. So, as a matter of fact, I would try and contact I don't know, do Quakers have a central assembly of organization at all? Well, I can try and find out about that. And how about the people at Baha'i? There are all possibilities of way we can do this, but it's all just work. And right now, there's just a very small group of us. Okay, and we're about to take more questions, but I wanted to say just two things very quickly before we go to questions and discussion. First of all, Anne, who's sitting here in the purple shirt, she has a sign-up sheet that if you are interested in PEP and you would like to get a quarterly newsletter of what we're doing and how things are going, how the petition is going, who's signed in, what's happening, sign up on that, and we will put you on a newsletter list. That's the first thing. And it will only come quarterly. We're not going to do one every month, but 4 times a year we think is reasonable. And the other thing is, if you give me their phone number as a suggestion that you might be willing to volunteer, the very first critical volunteer that we need is someone who is familiar with something like Constant Contact, which produces newsletters. That's I use them extensively when I was promoting A Future Without War. But there are other groups where you can sign up with them, and they keep a list of all the names and the addresses that they're going to send it to. You write your newsletter, you get it to them, and then they send out the newsletter. We would love to have someone who would be willing to volunteer to be that person for us. And the other one we definitely need, but not quite as urgently, is someone with experience with media, digital media. In other words, we're going to have, as I say, we got to promote this thing. We got to get on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all of those, the digital media platforms. We need a person who can do that for us. Probably not this generation, but if you have a niece or a grandchild that would be interested and is really good at reaching out to digital platforms, gee, we would love to hear from you. And the other one's traditional media. The news, we need somebody who will write press releases to the San Diego newspapers and then press releases to the big newspapers, national newspapers, and magazines. Somebody who will reach out to traditional media like magazines and tell them that we have somebody that would be willing to do an interview with your magazine. Would you get in contact with us? So that is what we're looking for right now, is woman power or manpower or just plain old people power. We need volunteers. And that's the end of my presentation. And it's time for questions, if you have any. How are we doing here? Okay, it's pretty good. All right, well, we had our first question. Michael, you got another one? Uh-huh. Again, I could, if I could refer you to the essay, but I will try and remember them off the top of my head. The first thing that has changed that makes enforcement possible is that we now have, back in those days, we didn't have a lot of digital spying ability. Now we have digital spying ability out the gazoo. We know exactly. The people who will keep, you have to have a committee, by treaty, there will be a group of people who are monitoring military action in every country of the world all the time. just like we have monitors for who was producing uranium, enriched uranium. You'll have to have monitors by treaty. You know, you go to everybody in all the nations of the world will have to agree who the monitors are, how you pick them out. That's what treaty negotiation is all about, figuring out the details. They would monitor because, for example, we knew that Putin was going to invade Ukraine well in advance. You could see him marshaling the troops. You could see his digital footprint of what he was planning to do and when he was planning to do it. Imagine that the Israelis were able to spy on Hezbollah enough to booby trap their pagers. Okay, we have incredible spying ability now that they did not have back then. And what that means is we can anticipate. This time we can anticipate if there's going to be an attack, either a physical attack or a digital attack. And if all the nations of the world, that's the second thing, is you have to get everybody involved. There will be agreements by treaty as to what will be, the first thing that will happen is a warning goes out to the potential perpetrator. Every nation in the world will be informed that this is being planned, and by treaty they will be obliged to immediately contact at official levels that we see what you're doing, and it's not acceptable. And if you do it, the next step of enforcement agreements will take place. But for starters, we're letting you know that we see you, don't do it. Then if they go ahead and do it anyway, the first level of enforcement will be applied not as sanctions after the fact, which is the way we operate now. And I'll tell you, the people in the peace community don't like sanctions. They feel sanctions, for one thing, the sanctions never touch the leaders, the political leaders and not the military leaders. It's the people of the nations that are punished by after sanctions. And for heaven's sakes, they're used after the fact. So what happens before the fact is right away, if an aggression occurs, immediately the leaders, both the military leaders and the political leaders of that country, will not be allowed to go enter any other countries in the world, except for one thing, to negotiate peace. Right away, that's slapped on the leaders. Nor will, and their children that are in any universities or colleges or have jobs anywhere in the world, their children will immediately be deported back to that nation. At the United Nations, they will not be able to hold any really meaningful seat anymore in the United Nations, and there may be one or two more that I've forgotten off the top of my head. This is what you do in advance. Chances are this is going to work, okay, because no nation can really afford to go against all the nations of the world. But I see you have a question. Exactly. I don't know the name of the individual, and my guess is it's not an individual, that it was probably a small team of people. I know that WILF, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, they supported it immediately. They've been around for 100 years, and they supported every one of these sorts of treaties that we've tried to make. But giving your support doesn't stop them unless they will comply. If you have a Putin who has a big army and is a megalomaniac and won't comply, you have what we have now. But yes, they're still working on, that treaty is up for renewal or something, it seems to me. This is the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Oh, the prohibition of nuclear weapons. Yeah. Well, you can make them illegal, and then how do you enforce it? It is amazing. What all of these tell you about humans is basically they want to live in peace. They do. They want to live in peace. But if you have outliers that are not part of that worldview, they can cause trouble. And that's why it needs to be a universal peace treaty. And by the way, that's another thing that is on our side in terms this time that it wasn't available in the other times. We now are living side by side. The nature of peace systems is that it's a community of people that live side by side and decide they don't want to make war on each other. Well, now we have instant global communication. We have virtually, almost instantaneously daily ability to travel from one nation to another. We are really united now. We are intertwined now in a way that when what one does definitely affects others. So if you stop grain coming out of Ukraine, people start starving in some countries in Africa. This intertwinement that we have now is another thing working in our behalf. It's not only the spying that we have, but it's the instant communication. And one of the beautiful things about the instant communication is, via the internet, which they didn't have, is that the peace people can unite as one and act as one. That means we have people power. If all of the peace groups that sign on to this treaty are connected through the internet, they can act. They can, within one day, they can have marches around in every country in the world. They can act as one, and that is called people power. Because one of the questions that you will always be asked is, what about the leader of so-and-so, the leaders of that country? They're not going to want to go along with this. What we're striving for is to reach the people of that country. And usually the people of that country are really on board with this, especially the women. Especially the women. So, for example, yes, the leaders of Iran will not be interested. But the people of Iran will be interested. And particularly, they are already very upset with, especially women in Iran are very agitated by their condition. You could recruit them into this global movement within probably 5 years, 6 years. By the way, this whole thing of getting a global peace treaty, in my view, realistically, you could do it realistically, but not easily, within 10 years. So you spend the first 3-4 years just getting people to the point where they all agree, finally, at last, we're going to do this thing. 3 or 4, maybe 5 years of heavy-duty promotion with Taylor Swift and other big influencers, get some athlete that everybody admires, whatever. And then once they make the decision and they start the treaty negotiations, those treaties, like the one on climate change, we're talking 3 years. So now you're adding another maybe 3 years. So 4 years, 5 years, another 3 years, we're talking 8 years to make the treaty and then get it in action, get all the people and so on in place. And in 10 years, you would have in place an agreement among all the nations of the world to not make international war. By the way, nobody's asked me the question, what about civil wars? What about civil wars? Right now, they're harder to do. They are harder to do because they're within a nation, and it has to be the people of that nation that come to agreement and begin to change their behavior, their way of thinking. But if it starts out with an agreement, a global peace agreement between nations, that we don't make war, and we save a lot of money that we can start giving. The things that cause civil wars are things that usually require fixing by money. You need to end poverty. You need to change the money system. It can't be rampant capitalism. There have to be some brakes put on capitalism. You have to change education system. You have to, did I say that already? You can spend money on starting to educate from children, from childhood up. They have to go to school and they have to learn to resolve conflicts non-violently. You have to aggressively teach non-violence. We have people teaching non-violence all the time, but they could use so much more money and so much more people power that they can have available to them if they're not spending it on weapons and weapons stockpile and building the next biggest super plane or a robot warrior. They can use their national resources in ways that will help them to end the causes of civil wars. But that is a much more difficult thing. That will be a while in the making. Yes. 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 Even worse and more handicapable, people make their living. People make their living in the war industry. Yes, I'm aware of all of the most violent opposition to Project Enduring Peace will be the war industry, beyond any shadow of a doubt. And at some point, it might get really messy. The advantage of having women in the lead and having the goal of doing this for the children of the future is it makes it harder for people to say, I don't want it. I don't want peace. I won't sign your petition because after all, I'm making my money over at Lockheed. No. The argument is in our favor because it's a humane position. We have the moral high ground, as Gandhi would say. If you want to make your cause and you want to use people power and you want to change anything, you have to occupy the moral high ground. And this is the moral high ground. But you're right about the money is the big problem, but not insurmountable. I would be willing to say, well, for example, I'll give you a horrible and painful example. Why do we find the Civil War? Money. They wanted slavery. That was their economy. And so when you hit people with the economy and how you make your living, and we've had slaves forever, and I couldn't run my farm without my slaves, yeah, it gets really diplomatical. But in the end, if you have the moral high ground, the arc of history bends towards justice in a general. It may take a while. Another question. Yeah. Huh.
We're having a year of the woman again.
Yeah. I am not optimistic. I'm ecstatic. Yes, this is the reason for PEP, because I think I already briefly mentioned a year and a half ago, it occurred to me that there were now enough powerful women to do this. And that was because I was watching a TV show that's hosted by a man and a woman. Her name is Mika Brzezinski. She's the daughter of Zbigniew, who was Jimmy Carter's, I forget what he was one of Jimmy Carter's persons. Yeah, advisors. And she was talking on a TV show about why I want to let everybody know that next week she said this, okay. You all know about the Forbes magazine. Forbes magazine publishes lists. Every year they have their Forbes list. the richest people in the world, the most famous people in the world, the fastest people. Forbes makes a list. And quite a few years ago, like 15 or more years ago, Forbes came up with the list called 50 over 50. This was the name of women around the world who were 50 years old or older, who were now considered powerful and influential. And they didn't start until about 10 or 15 years ago, okay? That was about the time I had looked around and said there aren't enough. And then a few years after that, they started 30 under 30. That's women, girls who are 30 years older or under, who are influencers, social influencers on the internet, entertainers, athletes, the 30 under 30s who are influential. And so Mika said, oh, I want to tell you, Forbes is having its first international 50 over 50, 30 under 30 in Abu Dhabi next month. There will be 500 women from all over the world who are all powerful influencers. And they'll be there talking about what can be done to make things better. And that's when my light bulb went. That was the moment when I said, oh, Judith, what you thought you never would live to see has happened. We can do this now. And by the way, when I say they're important influencers, I wanted to go to that meeting. Right away, I went and I checked Abu Dhabi next year, 50 over 50, 30 under 30, registration, $10,000. You're an influencer if you can pay $10,000 to go to a 4-day meeting. Yes. Before 10 years, I don't think that, I understand global heating very well, but we're not going to be hot enough in 10 years to prevent this treaty from being made. We'll be hot. It'll be only another reason why people will be saying, oh my gosh, yes, let's make this treaty and stop warfare, because we definitely need to spend money elsewhere. We have big problems with overheating. Let's hope. I still have some hope. There is still enough time that we could stop that you're talking about, that people will be dying like flies. There's still time. Yeah, there is. We got to have hope for just a little bit longer, but time is running out. The scientists are all beginning to shake their head like that and say, no, it's too late. We've gone too far, and the machine is so geared up, there's no stopping it. But I don't believe that's true. I think that we are very clever. We can come up with ways to sequester carbon dioxide. I don't know what they will be because I'm not a scientist. But there are people coming up with ideas that will prevent the problem. Yeah. Go ahead. You need to.
Check, check. Check, check.
To do something worthwhile.
Very well said. Very well said. Any other questions? Well, I hope I've given you some very serious food for thought. And I hope that some of you will now, I love that word, being an evangelist, because there was a time in my life when I was sort of an evangelist for a religious group. And being an evangelist means that you are bringing good news. Yes.
Being your inaugural presentation right here, which will be recorded for your use further. Particular individuals or groups reach out, or are we so much at the very beginning now that you have yet to listen such individuals?
Yeah, the only one that I reached out to was WILF, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. That's because this is a women's-led movement, and their whole thing is peace and freedom. I knew that they would be receptive, so I went to them, and I had to I talked my first talk. I went again to the next. I'm on the Disarm Committee. They have different committees, and I went to the one that deals with war, the Disarm Committee. I spoke to them, initial speaking, and then they said, oh, well, come and you can tell us some more about that. So I spoke to them twice more about PEP and what I'm talking about, and now we have the official support of the WILF Disarm Committee. We haven't gotten the permission yet of WILF at the national level, and that's because there was another group in front of us that got to, they only can discuss so much at their meetings, I gather, and so they put us off, but I expect and hope to get WILF National to also support us. And that is the only one I've really reached out to that comes in that category. I'm working with a different group that I'll mention because I think it has a lot of promise, but it is even more grandiose. If you think Project Enduring Peace seems kind of big, their project is even bigger. It's called the Founding Mothers Movement. And you can go on the internet and just type in Founding Mothers, and I think it says Founding Mothers World or something like that. They want to both end war and get equal rights for women, equal rights, officially established in all the nations of the world, equal rights for women. My feeling about that is, go girls, but it'll be a while. To me, that one is the equivalent of ending civil wars. Maybe you could do it a little sooner than ending all civil wars, but that is another group I'm reaching out to. They know about PEP, but they feel they're a little worried that we might be stepping on each other's toes. So that is my feeling, but I'm not leading that group. So I have to work with them. It'll take time. None of these things come quickly, and certainly not something as controversial as what we're talking about here. As you know, it takes some convincing. No, I don't think that group will not stop civil wars. No. No group. I don't have in mind a group that is, because civil wars are an issue of nations, okay? It's not a group thing. So you would have to go to a different nation and look at the people and the leadership of that nation and see how it's being run and find out what is causing their civil war. Is it drought? Is it poverty? Is it overpopulation? You know, what is causing the civil war there? And maybe it's getting so big now that it's usually two nations side by side that are in war with each other over a piece of land or something. There's no one you go to solve that, in my view. Yeah, Barb. Oh, I would love you to go online and sign it right now tonight. I told everybody to bring their laptop and their iPhone. If you have your iPhone and your laptop or iPad, go right now. Get on your iPhone. Type in projectenduringpeace.org. And then go down to that menu and click, or it'll be on the very first page, right there, on the first page down at the bottom. It says, sign the petition. Press that, go to the petition and sign it. And it's a good idea to do it now while you're thinking of it because, you know, we're all busy. You go home, you get involved in doing something else, and you don't get back to signing it. And by the way, your name will be on the first, at least the first 10 people who signed the petition. Maybe you'll have a bit of fame The first 10. Because we have 5 right now. That's the people who put it together. You may be 6 right now then. Okay, good. All right, what do you think? Is our evening over or not, Michael? You're the determiner of that. It is.
We have no further questions.
It is. Well, I don't.
It's time for us to give thanks for your presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Projector.
Even though our names aren't going to be mentioned, we're part of an historic recording here.
Yes.
It's going to be shared with lots of people. And so this august little group of older folks may have a hand in something.
Yeah, a hand is starting something big. Thank you, Michael, for having me. Thank you so much. Okay, I need to